6:23 in the morning, Wednesday the 19th of February 1969. The thermometer at Penistone Station reads -13 degrees, not Celsius. That number belongs to Manchester, where it has just recorded its lowest February reading of the entire 20th century. Here, in the Pennine Hills of West Yorkshire, the cold is something else entirely, something older, something that bends steel and breaks engines. The snow has been falling for 3 days, not the soft decorative kind that settles on Christmas cards. This is horizontal, driven by savage easterly gales that have already ripped through South Devon and are now tearing across the high ground between Huddersfield and Sheffield. Drifts have buried the dry stone walls. Telegraph poles stand at odd angles where the weight of ice has pulled their wires to the ground. Roads that were passable yesterday are gone today, swallowed under white. And somewhere in the operations room at Huddersfield, a decision is about to be made that has never been made before on this line. Every single passenger train on the Penistone branch will be piloted by a locomotive. Not some trains, not the ones that look like they might struggle. Every train. All of them. Because the diesel multiple units that normally work this route alone cannot be trusted to punch through what lies between Clayton West Junction and Penistone. The locomotive chosen for the job is Class 40 number 399, the last of her kind, literally. D399 was the final Class 40 to roll off the production line at the Vulcan Foundry in Newton-le-Willows, delivered to British Railways in September 1962. She carries the highest number in a fleet of 200 locomotives, numbered D200 through D399. Built by English Electric, she weighs 135 tons, spread across 8 axles in a one-co-co one-wheel arrangement. Her 16-cylinder English Electric 16 SVT Mark II prime mover produces 2,000 brake horsepower, feeding direct current to 6 nose-suspended traction motors that deliver 1,550 horsepower at the railhead. Maximum tractive effort, 52,000 pounds force. Maximum speed, 90 miles per hour. She is, by any measure, a beast, and on this particular Wednesday morning, she's about to become the most important machine on the Penistone line. The Class 40s had been the workhorses of the modernisation era. The first of the class, D200, made its passenger debut on an express from London Liverpool Street to Norwich on the 18th of April 1958. In the years since, the fleet had been gradually displaced from top-link duties by more powerful types, the Peaks and the Deltics pushing the Whistlers down the pecking order. By 1969, many Class 40s were finding their way onto secondary passenger work and freight duties, not glamorous, but vital. The decision to assign 399 as a pilot locomotive is not made lightly. British Railways does not simply attach mainline diesels to branch-line multiple units on a whim. The operating costs alone are significant. A Class 40 burns fuel at a rate that makes accountants nervous. There are maintenance implications, crew rostering complications, paperwork. But the controllers at Huddersfield have looked at the weather reports, they have listened to the signal men along the route, and they have made their calculation. The conditions on the ground have moved beyond difficult into something approaching impossible. A few hours of extra diesel expenditure is cheaper than a stranded trainload of passengers freezing in a Pennine cutting. The Penistone line itself is a product of Victorian ambition. The first section between Huddersfield and Penistone was opened on the 1st of July 1850 by the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway. The route climbs through the Pennine foothills, passing through Brockholes, Stocksmore, Shepley and Denby Dale, before reaching Penistone, where it once connected with the electrified Woodhead line running between Sheffield, Victoria and Manchester. By 1969, the Woodhead electrics are still running, but only just. The Cocoa locomotives will be shipped off to Holland before the year is out. The line itself has less than 12 years left, but in February of 69, all of that is in the future. The immediate problem is snow. February 1969 is brutally cold across Britain. Temperatures have plunged to -20 near Penrith on the 16th, -20.6 at Grandtown-on-Spey on the 18th. Central London has dropped to -7. The easterly gales have turned any snowfall into a weapon, piling drifts against every cutting, embankment and exposed stretch of track in northern England. Signal equipment freezes solid. Points jam. The semaphore signalling at Diggle has failed completely, forcing signalmen to resort to hand signals in near whiteout conditions. Across the Pennines, The situation is collapsing in real time. The 7:56 Sheffield Victoria to Manchester service has become stuck in a drift and will remain there for 5 hours. The 1802 New Mills to Sheffield diesel multiple unit is trapped at the west end of Cowburn Tunnel and will not be dug out until the following afternoon. At Diggle, the 1705 from Liverpool takes 3 attempts to batter through the snowdrifts before finally making it through. The Penistone branch, running through exposed high ground between Clayton West Junction and Penistone, is wide open to the easterly blast. The diesel multiple units that work the route are lightweight. They have modest power. In normal conditions, they do the job perfectly well. But these are not normal conditions. The snow is packing against the railhead, building between the tracks, and forming solid walls in the cuttings. A diesel multiple unit hitting a drift at 30 miles per hour does not punch through. It buries itself, so 399 is called forward. The procedure is straightforward in theory. The Class 40 couples to the front of each diesel multiple unit working the branch and leads it through the worst sections between Clayton West Junction and Penistone. The locomotive's sheer mass, 135 tons distributed across 8 axles, gives it traction that the lightweight multiple units simply cannot match. Her English Electric prime mover delivers power to 6 nose-suspended traction motors, and the one Coco one-wheel arrangement means she grips the rail with authority. Where a multiple unit would spin its wheels and stall, 399 simply leans into the drift and shoves. Train after train, she makes the run. Clayton West Junction to Penistone and back, again and again. Each time, the multiple unit tucks in behind her like a child sheltering behind a parent in a storm. Each time, the Class 40 takes the hit, her snowplow cutting through the accumulation, her weight keeping the wheels on the rail, her power dragging the lighter vehicles through sections where they would otherwise come to a dead stop. It is relentless, thankless work. The crew in the cab of 399 can see almost nothing through the forward windows. Snow hammers against the glass. The windscreen wipers struggle to keep up. The engine note rises and falls as the locomotive alternately finds clear rail and then hits another wall of compacted snow. The heating system fights a losing battle against the cold that seeps through every gap in the bodywork. But the service runs. Every train on the Penistone branch reaches its destination that day because a Class 40 locomotive is bolted to the front of it. While 399 is keeping the passenger service alive, events on the freight side of operations are going rather less well. At Skelmanthorpe, on the Clayton West branch, a coal train is in serious trouble. The locomotive is number 6922, and she has 27 loaded wagons behind her. Each wagon carries roughly 20 tons of coal. That is over 500 tons of dead weight sitting on a 3.5-mile branch line that drops on a gradient of 1 in 63 from Clayton West Junction down towards the terminus. The coal is destined for Healey Mills, the massive marshalling yard near Ossett that opened on the 23rd of July 1963 when Lord Robbins, chairman of the National Coal Board, cut the ribbon on one of the most ambitious freight facilities in Europe. Healey Mills covers 140 acres, stretches for 1.5 miles along the River Calder, contains 120 sidings covering 57 miles of track, and in a good week handles upwards of 4,000 wagons. In one study week in 1966, over 16,500 wagons were sorted in that yard. It is the beating heart of Yorkshire's coal distribution network, feeding trains to Lancashire and the east coast ports of Hull, Immingham and Goole. But 6922 is not going to reach Healey Mills today. The gradient on the Clayton West branch falls at 1 in 63 from the junction, down towards the terminus. In theory, the loaded wagons should help, their weight pressing the locomotive's driving wheels onto the rail. But theory has nothing to say about 3 feet of snow packed across the track. 6922 cannot move. 27 wagons of Yorkshire coal sit behind her, and she cannot shift them a single yard. The crew tries splitting the load, standard procedure when a train is too heavy for the conditions. Take half the wagons forward, come back for the rest. It does not work. Even with a reduced consist, 6922 cannot get the train moving out of Skelmanthorpe. The snow is too deep. The rail is too slippery. The locomotive's wheels spin uselessly against the packed white surface beneath them. The decision is made to abandon the train. 27 loaded coal wagons are left standing at Skelmanthorpe, their contents slowly disappearing under a fresh covering of snow. 6922 uncouples and sets off alone, light engine, heading for Healy Mills. She does not get there. Somewhere near Brockholes, 6922 suffers a complete mechanical failure. The details are not recorded in the surviving accounts, but the result is absolute. The locomotive is dead. No power, no traction, no way to move under her own steam. She's sitting on the main line between Huddersfield and Penistone, blocking the route and going nowhere. This is where the story takes its most unlikely turn, and perhaps its most human. Two local diesel multiple units, the same lightweight vehicles that cannot be trusted to handle the Penistone branch without a Class 40 escort, are pressed into rescue service. They couple up behind the stricken 6922 and begin to push, not pull, push. A dead locomotive, 100 tons or more of inert metal shoved along frozen rails by a pair of passenger rail cars that have spent the entire day hiding behind a bigger engine. The drivers of those multiple units know what they're doing. They know the weight they are pushing. They know the state of the rails, and they do it anyway. It works. Slowly, grinding through the ice and snow, the two multiple units propel 6922 along the line and into Huddersfield Station. The dead locomotive is moved off the running line and the route is cleared. There is something deeply satisfying about this reversal. All day, the multiple units have been the weak link, the vehicles that needed protecting, the ones that could not cope. And now, at the end of a day that has tested every piece of equipment on the line, it is the humble rail car that saves the stranded locomotive. The machines that needed a guardian angel become the guardian angels themselves. By nightfall on the 19th of February, the situation on the Penistone line is stable. 399 has completed her duties, having piloted every passenger service through the worst of the weather. The abandoned coal wagons at Skelmanthorpe will have to wait. 6922 is sitting dead at Huddersfield, awaiting assessment and repair. The two heroic multiple units have returned to their normal duties, no doubt relieved that the day is finally over. But the weather is not finished. The 20th of February produces even worse conditions. Fresh blizzards sweep across the Pennines. The trapped diesel multiple unit at Cowburn Tunnel is still buried. New services become stranded. The railways across northern England are fighting a battle they cannot win, throwing locomotives and manpower at a problem that only a change in the weather will solve. The February of 1969 is remembered by meteorologists as one of the coldest of the 20th century. For the railway workers on the Penistone line, it is remembered as the day a single Class 40 locomotive held an entire branch together. 399 herself would go on to serve British Railways for another decade and a half. The Class 40 fleet, 200 locomotives strong when the last one rolled out of Vulcan Foundry in September 1962, was slowly relegated from express passenger duties to secondary work. The Whistlers, as they were known for the distinctive noise of their turbochargers, became a familiar sight on freight and secondary passenger services throughout the north of England. The final Class 40 ended regular service in 1985. 7 have been preserved on heritage railways, including the first of the class, D200. The Penistone line survived Dr. Beeching's axe, thanks in part to Minister of Transport Barbara Castle, who reprieved the route in 1966. It survives today as a community rail line between Huddersfield, Barnsley and Sheffield, carrying over 1 million passengers a year. The Clayton West branch, where those 27 coal wagons sat buried in snow, closed to passengers in 1983. The track bed was later reopened as the Kirklees Light Railway, a 15-inch gauge heritage line. Healy Mills, that vast marshalling yard built to handle 4,000 wagons a day, lost its hump in 1984 and its marshalling responsibilities in 1987. The depot buildings were demolished in 2016. Most of the track has been lifted, 140 acres of railway ambition, slowly returning to grass and silence. But on the 19th of February 1969, none of that matters. What matters is that Class 40 number 399 stands at Clayton West Junction, her engine idling in the frozen dark, ready to do it all again, every train, every run, through the snow, through the wind, through the worst that a Yorkshire winter can throw at steel and flesh. The railwaymen who worked that day left no memoirs. No one gave interviews. There were no cameras waiting at Penistone Station to record the arrival of the piloted trains. This was simply what they did. A locomotive was needed, so a locomotive was provided. A coal train got stuck, so they tried to free it. When that failed, they abandoned the wagons and tried to save the engine. When the engine died, they improvised. 2 multiple units pushing a dead locomotive through a blizzard is not in any operating manual, but it worked. That is the story of British railways in winter, not grand strategy, not boardroom decisions, just men and machines doing whatever it takes to keep the line open for one more day, one locomotive, one branch line, one day that everyone who was there remembers,